Hello everyone, here is Renata Camargo and I'm in charge of Soft Expert Communication Management. Enjoy your participation in our webinar, ISO 26000, Incorporating Social Responsibility into the Business Strategy. I'm here with Leandro Venturi, Soft Expert EHSM Product and Market Manager, who will start now his presentation. Hello Leandro.
Hello Renata, thank you for the introduction and thank you for participating with us in this webinar today. So we'll be discussing a very important topic in this webinar, which is corporate social responsibility. Alright, so the theme of the webinar is ISO 26000, incorporating social responsibility into the business strategy. So we'll be discussing what are the elements, what are the subjects of ISO 26000, and how can that put your organization in a competitive position strategically within the market, and how you can work with which one in each one of those core subjects of ISO 26000 to improve performance in social responsibility and turn that into profit. So let's have a look at the agenda for this webinar. So we'll begin talking about corporate social responsibility. Let's learn what is exactly corporate social responsibility, what's behind the concept. All right? Then we'll be discussing the ISO 26000 framework. What is the proposal of ISO 26000 framework? What's the idea behind it? How it has been structured? What are the elements that compose this framework? Then we'll be discussing ISO 26000 and how it relates to other standards. What is the relationship between them? Are they compatible? Can you make it compatible with other regulations and legislations throughout the globe? After that, we'll be discussing the benefits, getting to know the benefits of incorporating ISO 26000. And finally, we'll learn what are the 4 steps to achieve social responsibility. And then we'll be concluding the webinar. Alright, so we're going to spend a few minutes in each one of these topics, getting to know a little better about corporate social responsibility. So let's get started. Well, corporate social responsibility. What is corporate social responsibility? Well, it is the responsibility of an organization for the impacts of its decisions and activities on society and the environment through a transparent and ethical behavior that. So there are 4 elements here that are the results of the behavior of these organizations that are so-called corporate, they're called social responsible. Alright, so let's learn a little bit about each one of them, shall we? First, the behavior that contributes to sustainable development, including health and well-being of society. Then, the behavior that takes into account the expectation of stakeholders. Who are my stakeholders, by the way? Here, it's important to a company that's socially responsible understand who are its stakeholders. It's not just investors, but all the people that have a special interest in my organization, what are their needs, and what is my social responsibility towards that. Okay? Another aspect of that behavior is it's to comply with applicable law and be consistent with international norms of behavior. Alright? So it's not just being subject to the law of my country, but also subject to the law of other countries. And not just that, because if I'm dealing with an organization or a supplier or a consumer that may not have a specific legislation for something that I consider social responsibility, I must take that into consideration as well. So it's also being consistent with international norms of behavior. All right, and finally, these companies that show a transparent and ethical behavior that is integrated throughout the organization and is practiced in its relationships. Right, it's not just in the process of the organization, it's not just within the organization, but also in all the relationships that surround my organization? Stakeholders, suppliers, consumers, community, everyone that's around it. Okay, so basically, in practical terms, corporate social responsibility is about providing useful products and services, providing jobs and development of opportunities for the communities that surround my business, and also to provide satisfaction through meaningful work. It's knowing that what you're doing is actually making a difference in a sustainable planet and making a difference in the life of the people that are your consumers and in all your chain of people that are involved in your work. Okay, so to understand a little more about corporate social responsibility, let's understand how it has begun. Well, actually, corporate social responsibility has existed since the beginning of industry, but it was only in the 50s that modern discussions about corporate social responsibility had begun. And then in the 70s, the concern about the matter was increased, but at that time was mainly focused on charity and philanthropy. So at that time, people, they didn't have the understanding that the impact of their activities and the decisions the organization made was actually going to make much of a big difference in a sustainable environment. But it did, but that wasn't the focus at that time. The focus at that time was donating to charity and donating to help to improve some areas of society, education, health, and other things. So at that time, the idea of social responsibility was just giving part of my profit to improve some area of my society. But it was not just that. And that's why in the 80s and 90s, with the intensive globalization, another element or other elements were brought to discussion, and these were things such as labor, fair operating practice, and human rights. So in the 90s and the 80s, when was very visible that operating with suppliers from developing countries was much cheaper and much profitable for developed countries, some things started to come up. Yeah, so that's why discussions such as human rights, fair operating practice, labor, they had begun. And then after the 90s, in 2001, ISO has put together a committee that began the discussions to create a standard for corporate social responsibility. And from them, not just because of ISO 26000, but in the beginning of the 20s, things started to flourish for corporate social responsibility. So the discussion has increased, and all the other aspects that have to do with corporate social responsibility were being discussed and put into practice in the organizations. So today, organizations, they demonstrate social responsibility organizations demonstrate social responsibility through transparent and ethical behavior that contributes to and protects the society. It's not just donating money, as we talked about, it was in the 70s, right? And also, organizations these days, they demonstrate explicitly that they can act within international accepted norms of behavior at the same time as complying with the laws of each country. So if I'm doing business with India, I'm complying with the legislation of my country, but I'm also complying with the legislation in India, but also accepting and I'm putting into practice accepted norms of behavior while I'm complying with the law of these two countries I'm operating in. All right, and also organizations these days, they show social responsibility by clearly contributing to the sustainable development of the societies they operate in, paying careful attention to health and welfare issues. So organizations, they now understand that if they do not act socially responsible, they will lose out to competitors. So regardless of size, line of business, or service, social obligations, they are applied. And this is why ISO 26000 guidance on social responsibility standard comes in. Well, now let's get to understand a little bit more about the ISO 26000 framework. First, what is the ISO 26000 standard? This standard, it's a global standard, and when we say global, it means that it was written, it was made to be applicable to any country, any kind of business, in any society in the world. All right, so it's a global standard for social responsibility, which provides a comprehensive framework for corporate social responsibility, which means that it gives you all the tools to apply corporate social responsibility in your organization. It's also a standard that addresses full range of social and environment subjects to promote sustainable development. That means that it doesn't focus only on society, but in all aspects of sustainable development, such as environment, society, human rights, labor, consumer needs, and fair operations. All these that we call core subjects of ISO 26000 excuse me, all these core subjects of ISO 26000, they address different points that go through one single thing that it intends to promote, that it's sustainable development. Alright, so also ISO 26000 is meant for all types of organizations, as we said before. It is not intended for third-party certification as other standards such as ISO 9001, ISO 14001. The idea here is just to create a framework of to improve corporate social responsibility within the company. The idea is not to put a seal on the product saying that you are corporate socially responsible, but rather just to create the sense of corporate social responsibility within the organization. And also, it's also intended to spur voluntary initiatives, not only activities that promote profit, but also activities that promote wellness and promote the development of the community without thinking of profit. Okay, so this is the ISO 26000 standard, and now that we know what it is, let's try to understand a little bit how does it work. Alright, so basically the ISO 26000 framework works in three steps, three key elements to bring performance in corporate social responsibility. First, it works through reflection. It starts by asking questions and challenging organizations in terms of social responsibility. So it brings principles such as accountability, transparency, ethical behavior, respect for stakeholder interests, respect for the rule of law and international norms of behavior, and respect for human rights. So it brings all these principles so organizations can make a reflection and see how well or how not well they are dealing with each one of those principles. That helps organizations to get perspective. That's the first thing. Then ISO 26000 brings the idea of understanding what truly is social responsibility and what are the impacts and activities in my sphere of influence, which means that it tries to show you that corporate social responsibility has to do with the actions that you take and how that impacts everyone that's surrounding you, right? So that's the understanding that ISO 26000 framework tries to bring to organizations. And finally, acting on key subjects of society that has to do with social responsibility. And these core subjects, we're going to learn a little bit about them forward, but the idea here is that the standard, it goes into the most depth and take each one of those subjects and drill down into them to really get to the heart of the questions that need to be answered. So when it comes to this core subject, what do I really need to do to show corporate social responsibility, right? So that's the idea. And now let's have a look at these core subjects, each one of them. There's 7, and they all involve different aspects of society, different aspects of sustainability, and they all have to do with corporate social responsibility. Okay, so we have here organizational governance, human rights, labor practice, environment, fair operation practices, consumer issues, and community involvement and development. Alright, so let's learn a little bit about each one of them. Right? So first one, organizational governance. So what is this about? So I believe this is the core of, probably is the core of this webinar, because when we talk about organizational governance, we're talking about incorporating social responsibility into the strategy of the organization. It's about practicing accountability and transparency at all levels of the organization. It's about using leadership to create an organizational culture which uses core values of social responsibility when making business decisions. And these business decisions, of course, they are taken into based on the strategy of the organization. And if social responsibility is part of my culture, is part of my strategy, my decisions will reflect that, and that will certainly benefit my business. All right. So this is one of the core subjects of ISO 26000. Another one is human rights, which is about treating all individuals with respect and making special efforts to help people from vulnerable groups. So this is about giving the chance to everyone in your organization, regardless color, race, sexuality, financial condition, and among a lot of other things that can put people in vulnerable positions within the society. Alright, so when you take into consideration human rights, you are taking into consideration all these aspects that make people vulnerable, and you are treating them all with respect as equals and giving them equal opportunities as well within the organization. Alright, another core subject in ISO 26000 is about labor practices. It's about providing just, safe, and healthy conditions for workers. It's about engaging that what we call a two-way discussion to address the workers' concerns. Right? So what is important for my workers? What are the special needs that they have, and how can I address those needs? How can I provide a safe place for work, a healthy place for work, where people can feel secure and feel that they are actually doing a meaningful job. All right. Other core subject is environment. It's about identifying and improving environment impacts of my operations, of the operations of my organization. What am I doing that can be somehow impacting on environment? And that includes how am I using my resources? Am I using not sustainable resources? How am I disposing my waste? Am I disposing my waste in a non-sustainable way? So this subject brings to surface all these items, all right, all these discussions, okay, within the environment. It's just one little thing inside the whole corporate social responsibility culture. What else? Fair operating practices. It has to do with respecting the law. It has to do with accountability and fairness in your dealing with other business, including suppliers. So how am I being fair with my competitiveness in the market? Am I being fair with the other players of the market? Am I being fair with the people I'm dealing, the people I'm getting supplies from? All this fairness have to do with not just respecting the law, but also ethical behavior in the markets. Okay. Other core subject is consumer issues. It's about providing healthy and safety products, giving accurate information, and promoting sustainable consumption. So this is about giving a good product, not something that people will think it's good. It's not about making them think it's good, but it's actually being responsible for what you are offering people. Yeah, offering safe products, giving them the accurate information about how you produce that, and what are the impacts of the production of that problem. That product, and also promoting sustainable consumption of that. Uh, it's about consuming and knowing that after you dispose that product, that has a chain of of, of, of disposal in the environment that will have an impact, and you need to promote that knowledge within your consumers as well, and promote the sustainable use of your products. Alright, so remember, we are always responsible for those who are in our chain of operation, and if our consumers consume our products and do not use it properly, we need to promote the use of our products in a fair and proper manner. Alright? Finally, community involvement and development. This is about getting involved in the betterment of local communities that your organization operates in. It's about being a good neighbor. It's about creating chances for the community that's surrounding your business to develop, to grow, and somehow help your organization as well as you're helping them. So it's about being a good neighbor. All right, and sometimes we think that's just about good deeds, but no, it actually can help your business getting involved, right? If you develop the community that's surrounding you, you are creating a relationship of trust, and you are developing people to being able to help you as well. All right. So this is about the core subjects, and now I want to show you the basis of the framework of ISO 26000. Besides those core subjects, ISO 26000 is organized in different chapters or clauses, just like other ISOs. So basically, there are four clauses that are very important in ISO 26000. The first one is clause 4. It outlines the principles of social responsibility: accountability, transparency, ethics, stakeholder interests, law, international regulations, human rights. Right, so that becomes the basis for all the framework of ISO 26000 for corporate social responsibility. And on clause 5, we talk about the practice of corporate social responsibility. It's about recognizing social responsibility, which means that understanding that you do have responsibility, and also identifying and getting engaged to the stakeholders, getting to know who are they, and getting engaged to their cause and understanding what are their needs. All right, and to do that, you need to use the principles that were outlined on clause 4. In clause 5, the standard outlines all the subjects that we've just seen in the past slides. All right, all the 7 core subjects. It outlines the actions, the related actions to those subjects, and what are the expectations. What can the company do to show, to demonstrate they are compliant with the needs of those core subjects. All right, and to do that, you need again to use the principles of social responsibility that were established on clause 4. And finally, on clause 7, it's about putting that concept of social responsibility in the organization, in the process of the organization, and spread that throughout the organization in all levels, from top to bottom. And again, to put that in all levels of your organization, you need to understand the principles of social responsibility. So this is how the framework works. Outlines the principles in clause 4, and in clause 5, 6, and 7, it uses those principles to achieve performance in corporate social responsibility. Well, now that we have learned about a little bit more about the framework of ISO 26000, it's important for us to get to know how it relates to other standards, right? So we've seen that ISO, just as the other ISO standards, it offers a guidance framework that can relate to other standards, laws, and good practices very well. All right, and we're not just talking about the ISO standards here. We're talking about international regulations, international guidelines, and internationally recognized good practices of markets that are fully compatible with ISO 26000. So that is a key element when thinking about incorporating ISO 26000 as part of your business compliance strategy. So if you're thinking about corporate social responsibility, you probably already have a framework for compliance in your organization, and when you understand that ISO 26000 is fully compatible with all these other frameworks, it's a very interesting information for you, because you feel relieved that you will be able to apply that with no major problems into your compliance strategy. Okay, so let's see a few examples on how ISO 26000 can relate to other standards. For example, when you talk about human rights in ISO 26000, we see few standards that have a lot to do with that core subject. For example, SA 8000 certification that has to do with social accountability, the UN Global Compact, the GRI, that's a Global Reporting Initiative, the Equator Principles, all those codes of conduct on workplace conditions, BSCI, CIS, EICC, ETI, FLA, WRAP, all those are fully compatible with the requirements of ISO 26000. And when we talk about labor practice, for example, we see that OHSAS 18000 is 100% compatible with ISO 26000, as well as the other ones that we talked about before. And when we talk about environment, I don't need to say that this is fully compatible with all ISO 14000 family of standards, and that includes all ISO 14001, ISO 14040, and 14064 that has to do with greenhouse gas accounting, and also the ISO 50001 energy management system that is 100% compatible with ISO 26000. GRI again, the Global Compact from United Nations, Water Footprint Network, the BS A905, all these standards, they are fully compatible with ISO 26000. And when we talk about consumer issues, which is a very important topic in the ISO 26000, we see that it's totally compatible with standards such as ISO 9000, that's quality, the basis of all consumer products. And when you talk about consumer issues, it's about understanding what they need, and we know that quality has a lot to do. Actually, it's basically giving to your client, your customer, what they need, attending to their requirements, right? And then there are other standards that are directly involved with the ISO 26000, such as ISO TS 16949. It's quality for automotive parts, but it also has to do with security. All right. So do you remember when we talked about consumer issues? That's providing safe products to our consumers. That's where ISO TS 16949 comes in. And then there's another whole lot of standards, such as medical devices, cosmetics, supply chain management system, information security management systems, sustainable use of materials, and so on. Yeah. So these are just a few examples on how ISO 26000 collaborates with other standards, and that will come out really easily for you to put that together, regardless the industry you're in, regardless which standard regulates the industry you're in. Okay. Well, now that we've got to know a little bit of ISO 26000, we can see what are the benefits behind corporate social responsibility, or behind a framework such as ISO 26000, and how these benefits will impact my strategy, right? So if I know that I have some benefits, I know that I can use those benefits, and I can change my business strategy to achieve those benefits. And well, corporate social responsibility can bring a lot of benefits, and these benefits are not just well-being benefits, but actually they are profitable benefits. All right. So, for example, competitiveness. and a competitive advantage over companies that have not been assessed against the standard and are therefore unable to prove the extent of their socially responsible behaviors. Being competitive in the market means profit, right? So today, not all organizations are trying so hard to demonstrate corporate social responsibility. They might have a few projects, they might have some things, but they most of organizations still cannot be called social responsible. So when you achieve corporate social responsibility through a framework such as ISO 26000, you are demonstrating that you have corporate social responsibility, and that puts you one step ahead of those other organizations, and that of course means profit for you. Also, another benefit is relationship, improved relationship with stakeholders, consumers, and suppliers. So when you start to care about the interests of your consumers, of your suppliers, of the community that's surrounding you, you are creating a relationship. You're showing that you care, and when you show that you care, people trust you. Yeah, and if these people are trusting you, you are creating a relationship of trust that will certainly benefit your organization. So these organizations, they start to view the organization more positively as a result of its dedication to behave in a social responsible manner, right? So other few benefits, morale, for example, if your staff knows that they are working for an organization that care about labor practices, care about human rights, care about promoting and in promoting the differences, not promoting the difference, but promoting the equality between differences. You have a staff that will actually want to work for a company, want to stay in your company, and that will retain the good talents, retain the good professionals. And one last benefit I want to talk about is visibility, right? So once your organization becomes social responsible, it gives the organization a whole new visibility within the financial community, all right? That brings investors close, and that also brings money to your organization as well. So you see that sometimes when you think about corporate social responsibility, we just think about, well, that's something good that will relieve my consciousness, that maybe will help me to look good. But it's not just that. It's not just about looking good, not just about compliance with some regulations, law, or guidelines by United Nations. It's actually doing that, feeling good about that, but also profiting with that. This is what sustainability is all about. It's getting the benefits for yourself, but when you're actually doing good to others, the people that are surrounding you. And well, that's the great thing about ISO 26000. Finally, you may say to me, Leandro, yes, I understand the benefits, I see everything, but how can I achieve social responsibility? Well, social responsibility, we can put that in 4 basic steps. Of course, they're practically, they're in the real life, there are actually lots of other things that you need to do, but with these 4 basic steps, there's just the things that you need to do to begin with, all right, to start thinking about corporate social responsibility. First thing is carry out a diagnosis. Try to get awareness of the impacts of your activities and your decisions, and how these impacts they are, how these activities and decisions, they impact the environment, how they impact society, right? And this step is the moment as well where you will identify your stakeholders, where you measure your strengths and your weaknesses, and you try to understand how can I close that gap between where I am right now and where I want to be in terms of corporate social responsibility, right? So that's the diagnosis. Try to know how you are at the moment, all right? Step 2, identify existing initiatives. Sure, in your organization there's got to be somehow some sort of initiative for social responsibility. The minimum it is doesn't matter. The idea here is to begin with what you already have. Make it grow, make it bigger. Don't try to create a whole new thing. Try to begin with what you already have that will help your organization to improve, and there won't be such a great impact for organization, and that of course will cost much less for you. And also you'll be working with something that you already know. So if you have programs in your organization, if you have initiatives, if you have things with projects with your society, things like that, work on that and make that grow. That will be the first step for a great portfolio of social responsibility initiatives. All right, and then next thing you have to do is to initiate internal training, and that has to come from top down. It has to begin with the managers and directors. They have to have the understanding, and then you're going to train your employees so they can actually put that into practice in the process of the organization. So if the management is not in the boat, all the organization won't be as well. So the idea here is that everyone has the feeling of corporate social responsibility in their process, in their actions, in their decisions. So if everyone is trained, if everyone understands the impact of their decisions and actions and the impact of their jobs in the life of the community that's surrounding them, in the environment, in the society, they'll start to put into practice the values that you establish for them to put them into practice in their process. All right. So finally, a last step that is not a requirement, but may be a great thing for you to invest on. It's external assessment. All right. Get an organization, a specialized organization, to assess your corporate social responsibility framework. I know that sometimes we think, well, am I going to invest on something that I don't see value? I won't generate immediate profit for myself. But the thing is, corporate social responsibility, it's something that will certainly revert in a lot of benefits for you in long term. So that's the thing. You need to look at it as a long-term investment. But yes, external assessment can be great. But if you think that you have all the information you need in your house, maybe you have the people that can put together a nice framework in your organization, great. What you need to do next is to review your management system and improve performance. Just like any ISO standard, you review your process, you see what you have to improve, and then you act on those improvements. That's what we do. Okay, so corporate social responsibility in ISO 26000 is not different. Okay. Conclusion. Well, it was great to discuss all the aspects of ISO 26000 with you today. And the final message I want to leave is that corporate social responsibility within the ISO 26000 can be a great framework for you to gain competitiveness in the market. All right, so it's definitely important to have that as part of your business strategy. Don't focus just on profit, but try to focus as well on the people that are surrounding you, the people of your organization, the people that are living in the community your business is in, and all the chain of organization and people that are involved in your business. All right, if you try to create a nice, sustainable business, all these people will certainly benefit, and that will be reverted in benefits for our organization as well. Okay, so thank you for participating with us today. It was a great pleasure to talk to you, and I invite you and welcome you to our website, softexpert.com, so you can get to know other resources, other webinars, white papers, and also to get to know a little bit about our solutions and how we can provide a great solution for you to establish a framework such as ISO 26000. Okay, thank you again, and see you soon.